Hello and welcome to the Chronocast. Today we're going to be talking about Iron Age art. It's quite a bold topic, I think.
I think it is.
Yeah. But this is following on from a conversation at our Celts event with the wonderful Alistair. So I think what we'll do is, Jason, we'll start with Alistair's little piece where he talked about the art and the culture of prehistory and how it's inspired him and the work that he's done with us. And then I think we'll have a chat ourselves about the collection here, what we have here, and really focus. I think it's quite a ephemeral topic. It's uncertain. We've got a lot of things around it, but we'll have a chat about it after we've listened to Alistair. So I'll hand you over to myself and Alistair. So I'm sat here with Alistair Blaine at the Celts event, and Alistair, if you just want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. As you say, my name's Alistair. I'm a kind of painter, craftsman, dabble in music, and yeah, just here for the experience.
We had your performance last night, which is
If you can call
unique.
it that.
No, it's unique. It's wonderful. You're an artist. The best way I could describe you, Alistair, is I was saying this to the other guys here, is you're an artist in everything you do. So you're here for the Celts event. What is it you're doing this weekend?
Well, yeah, so I'm particularly interested in the pigments and that historical journey through time with colour and minerals and learning how to find your material.
Yeah.
Maybe you're by the waterside of the river and you see a nice rock and learning how to use that. So that's a really strong focus for me, and thinking that timeless story of ancient art and how we've always figured out these material processes, and a lot has been lost to time. Certainly, like as far as painting goes, sure we have the caves, France and things. There's nothing that I've heard of in Scotland that's lasted so long. So more carving art, but I like to ponder into what painting on hide, potentially like raw hide, and having these wall hangings, and a nice kind of connection with the music there is I make a couple of drums, so you can paint your drum, and so you have this kind of synthesis of all of the different materials and things that humans enjoy to do. I mean, we love music, we love to look at something beautiful, we love to hold something that is handmade, so just all about the handmade life. In all of its rambling forms. I wouldn't say I'm a master in any of it, but I just keep layering things on, and more is more, you know.
Yeah, because I think when you look at the archaeologists are very good at looking at the tangible, and we're very, very good at looking at what is practical and functional in a piece. What we're not so good at in terms of prehistory, I say not good at, is they probably get hung for saying that, but actually what we're not good at is understanding the intangibles. So that is, the artistic side of it, the power of what is the art, what is the function. We can take ideas of art. So within our collection we have a swan neck pin with a beautiful curves and things like that. We have sandstone pendants, we have jewellery, we have a lyre bridge, we have a very small piece of wood with notches in it which indicates a string instrument. Again, everything I've just mentioned there was its material, it was what it was, but what we can't get is the artistic power of it.
Absolutely, and I think there, perhaps the swan head is a beautiful example, because maybe there was a mythology or a story behind that as to why was it a swan neck, or we interpret it that way, but and that's something that without that oral transmission, without that living connection to prehistory, we lose it, so maybe it takes someone like me to dream and find possible ways around that. But I think there's a really interesting point in Scotland where we have these pieces of mythology, these symbols, like the beastie is a great example of that. We just don't know. But I like to dream and kind of give the benefit of the doubt, and maybe whatever arises, and just it's in the conversations, and I just think that's a wonderful way to just keep, like, it's not dead. It's exciting, and we can still interpret and reinterpret and learn and share. And with that, here especially is like, it's one of my favorite places to hang out, because you have all these different different voices and expertise in the archaeology and the practical craft side of things, and I just love this space to blend it all together, and it's wonderful and organic.
It's a melting pot.
Yeah,
it's really what it is. Yeah. But I think that's again, as us as a museum, to understand 2,500 years ago how people lived. 2,500 years ago, there was people that were artistic. There was people that were functional. There was people that, wouldn't listen to music. There would have been people that. There were a diverse group as a community back then. As diverse a group you can create today will help you understand that better.
Yeah.
If we have a lot of wonderful archaeologists that know a ton about the archaeology, it's actually not the complete picture, because that's not the complete diverse community to understand it. So
absolutely,
having folk like yourself actually strengthens a million times what we do. So you've come to the Crannog now for...
I think this is my third year.
The third year for the Celts Are Coming event. Why did you keep coming back? What
Okay, I mean,
what's possessed you?
Just the spirit of it, and just that as you say, that vibe of the melting pot, and there's always meeting the same folk and meeting new faces as well. There's always new brain sparks, new projects that I can bring, and I'm interested in this, and we just more sharing, more knowledge to learn, and I think it's initially I'm just absolutely amazed by, I'm a painter, so I like I paint a lot of landscapes. So seeing the Crannog there, and just that timeless feeling it gives me is this, sure, it's of the past, but it's really, it could have been 1,000 years ago, it could have been 2,000, it could have been 5,000, it could be 1,000 years from now. And we have to, maybe go back to living more sustainably and organically. It's just a huge, joy to be here, and like, thank you guys for really creating that space and that living museum. It's not, things aren't, you have your artifacts, but you really put that emphasis on, engaging and tactile quality, which, just seeing the kids here as well, especially. I wish I was coming here when I was a child, but
the artifacts are only the artifact itself is only half of it in a way, because it's the process. I think the Crannog Centre, it's a place of process.
Exactly.
We were all about how you get there, how do you do it, but also how do you think about it, and how does that affect. So we're moving to the Lurb. We've got a brand new museum that we will be building, and as of 2022, I believe that's the year, isn't it? We're going into 2023. We're going to be opening the new museum. Anything you looking forward to with that? Anything you'd want to see?
Just the whole thing, and definitely keen to get in amongst and I guess learn. And I'm very interested in these kind of ways of building, and just I guess to see just more is more for me. To see more of that living village quality, that you own the land now, so you can start to really build and dig roots, and have more Crannogs, more things on the site. Just what a feast, There's an old kind of bardic saying, it's the feast of shells. So we drunk out of shells. It was the kind of, I kind of extrapolate that to just, the feast of culture, really. It's just a cultural feast, and it's just such a joy to be part of it.
Brilliant, Alistair. Well, it's lovely to have you, and you are one of my favourite people, but I say that to everyone, so there you go. Just don't change. That's all I'd say. Don't change, and keep coming back. Brilliant. So that was Alistair. Jason, thoughts? conversation there building around art, building around prehistory and how prehistoric art was. We love Alistair to bits.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
He's unique. I think it's the best word for him.
Yeah.
And you need people like that to give unique perspectives. You yourself, not that you brag about this, but you have a master's in art from the Royal
College of Art. Yeah.
College of Art. From the Royal College of Art, and you have a very unique perspective as well, because not only do you have an artistic and not just a simple artistic, quite an intense artistic background, but you also have the more recent work you've done around archaeology, experimental archaeology.
Yeah.
Put my teeth in.
Yeah.
Experimental archaeology, and you've also got this unique perspective of the Iron Age as well. So, based off what you've just had listened to, and what your background is, Iron Age art.
Yeah.
What is it?
Okay. Well, I think first of all, I'll just talk about when I went to college. So, I trained as a printmaker, and what I noticed when I was at the Royal College was there was a hierarchy of art. So at the top you have painting and sculpture, and then underneath that, printmaking. And it wasn't that we were slightly looked down on, but we weren't held in such high regard. And that is because we were making multiples, and if sometimes you made things, people would say, that's very crafty, as if somehow the craft sat below the arts.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that we were just making these kind of one-off things, these one-off beautiful things, although we could do. But anyway, we kind of traded on that a little bit. We kind of loved that. The fact that we were seen as the rebels. We were the printmakers up to our necks in kind of printing and stuff like that. But anyway, so this split between art and craft happened as a kind of post-Enlightenment thing, where things were split off. So you've got the fine art, which was set by the elites, and they decided what art was, and craft was what working class people did, or the people that were kind of down below, if you like. So we were kind of put into that category. Okay. So if we trace the word art right back to the original Latin, so artem, which is where it came from, it then became art in Old French, but basically what it means is it's skills gotten through learning and practice. So I think if we take that as our starting point, that makes it into a more of an interesting debate.
Yes.
So when Alistair was talking about art brilliantly, and I think Alistair is an artist that lives it. He doesn't just have his normal kind of day job and then he does his art. He lives as an artist and he speaks as an artist, and I think that really, really comes through in what he was talking about.
He's a painter.
He's a painter. But we're going back to this thing of what is art in the Iron Age? What do we look for? And sometimes I hear people say there was no written word or any art at all from the Iron Age. What people mean by that is there's nothing coherent that we can understand as a written language, which probably wouldn't have survived. But they mean the contemporary version of art. So they mean painted things on things.
Yes.
So they mean maybe a painted door, or as Alistair was talking about, the caves.
Yeah.
But if we go back to the original meaning of that, which predates all of that, skills gotten through learning and practice. So what does that imply? It implies wisdom. It implies people training. It implies community action. But it also, I think, infers a different sense of aesthetics. So what people may have been looking at as something that's really beautiful, and this is absolutely amazing, we would maybe just overlook it now because it doesn't fit into our current definition of what art is. Yeah. So I don't think we can really say there wasn't art in the Iron Age. I know we've got things like the talks that you find, you know, the carnixes from the late Iron Age. We'll consider that art because it's decorative. Yeah. But I think we can also look at some of the objects here, like our pottery that have got tiny marks on them. How do we know that they weren't being perceived as kind of absolutely beautiful objects which were treasured and became people's favourite things? Yeah. So it's splitting out, and we can never walk across the landscape and look at things in the way that the people in the Iron Age did. And I think that is, we have to acknowledge our bias on that, absolutely. I think the other thing Alistair was talking about was quite interesting. He was talking about tangible things. So he was talking about painting. And then it changed, it went into music, which became intangible. So it's moving into the intangible. So maybe the songs that were sung in the Iron Age have somehow drifted down, and there are maybe syllables or words that exist in Scots Gaelic we don't know. And then he provided the root of what art is about. Art is about storytelling. So then it's about the objects. So that's then linking in what we were talking about, skills gotten through learning and practice. And that's where I think my perspective and Alistair's perspective intersects. So that's when we start talking about the collection.
Yeah, it's because that's not a bad answer, Jason. I'll give you that. That's a pretty good answer. Yeah, fair enough. No, just to pick up on a few of the things you said there, especially that thing about learning and practice. I am not an artist, as you fully well know. I have no artistic skills in the way that you would define the modern sense of the word. I do have skills which I've picked up regularly through learning and practice.
Yeah, so therefore you're an artist. So you showed me how to smelt copper. So I learned from you in the same way someone did in the Iron Age to take it back to its original thing. Skills got through learning and practice. You've got that skill through learning and practice, and you taught me. So you're an artist in the true sense of the word.
Yes, there you go. Everyone's an artist. I like that.
Yes,
that's a good one. It's a good one. But the big thing with the collection, just to come back to that, what we do have in this collection is a fantastic range evidenced at Oakbank Crannog of skills and craft, and I think this division of craft and art, as you said, that we have over the years made wider. Yeah. In terms of not in terms of the actual, we're not saying that craft is not art and art isn't anymore, but in the mindset of people, there's craft and there's art. They're two separate things. I think back in the Iron Age, I think when we look at our collection, you can't do that.
No, you can't.
You can't divide the art and the craft as it is, because simply put, there's pottery is a fantastic example. Yeah. I mean, you go prior to the Iron Age. In fact, pottery in the Bronze Age throughout Europe, it's quite fine stuff. It's quite, you've got a lot of nice fluted shapes and bends, and you've got the designs, the beaker pottery as they are as you go even further back. It's very, very crisp and clean. And actually, as you go into the Iron Age, we see with our collection, primarily not actually Oakbank Crannog, which is the Crannog Centre we have, primarily Oakbank Crannog, but we also have another Crannog called Dunvarvat, which was located up on the Isle of Lewis. And at that site, which is a completely different Crannog, still dated to the Iron Age, the range of pottery is incredible. And the decoration is so, it's finely incised, it's regular, and just every single inch of the stuff has just got these fantastic decorations on them. And that, in a way, these aren't, thin porcelain. This isn't really, fine, painted ware or anything like that. Art, as we might say today. But what it is it's functional, but there is this decoration that's being placed on it. And there's this choice, and through practice and through choice, they're decorating these pieces. Again, step back, somebody looking at that piece of pot, we go, oh, that's nice. They would have done it using this, and they would have shaped it using impressed cordage or small bits of wood. And what we're doing as archaeologists is actually, we are fundamentally reducing it back to its base craft. Yeah. And actually, what we're not doing is we're not going, well, why have they chosen that design? Yeah. Is there a meaning behind that design? I'm saying meaning, it makes it very intangible again, but it is intangible, And what we can't do, just as you said, put ourselves in the shoes, look at that decoration, and understand what that decoration means. Yeah.
But it's, I've heard people, just for example, talking about pottery, but I also want to talk about the arrowhead over there. I'm going to jump over to that in a minute. Yes. So it's really interesting. But when I've heard people talk about, pottery, and they go, in the Bronze Age, it was really nice, and it was glazed, and it had these beautiful objects. And then we move into the Iron Age, and things get a bit rough. And I've heard even archaeologists do that, and you're thinking you are still seeing things through your cultural prism. Yeah. You've immediately jumped into that. So you're talking about beauty, and then you're talking about the Iron Age, and you start just essentialising and talking about its marks. Yeah. It's got these marks on it. And then we move into the late Iron Age and the Roman period and the carnixes and these really beautiful things. It's almost like people cannot escape this cultural prism of looking at things. In the marks on the Dunvarvat pottery, we do not know what stories those contain. They might be, as you say, they are covered in marks. Could it be that people are encoding their stories onto different pottery in different places at different times? So I think it'd be really interesting to look at excavations from other crannogs. Is there pottery there? Are the marks different? What is that telling us about the stories of the people in that place? If art at its basic level is about a story. Yeah. But I just want to jump over to the Bronze Age arrowhead. I've heard many interesting things that people have said about this.
Just to put it into context,
the
excavation at Oakback Crannog, there was, amongst all the Iron Age finds, there was one singular, so far singular, I'm not saying it was singular, but there was a singular Bronze Age arrowhead. It was barbed and tanged, which means basically it was a triangle. If you imagine a classic arrowhead, it's got the triangle with the two little points and the barbs coming off the side, and then a single piece, and it was either flint or quartz. As I haven't been tested. I think it's labelled as quartz. It could potentially be flint. It's that side of it, but that was found. Just to put that to context. Carry on, Jason.
So it's found. So if we look at this, skills gotten through learning and practice. It's a beautiful arrowhead, and it's pressure flaked, and you tend to find arrowheads. A lot of these kind of arrowheads in Crieff. A lot of them come from there. You find a huge amount of them there. So one of them has ended up here, but it's from the Bronze Age. So could it be that people from the Iron Age, people who lived on Oakbank Crannog were walking across the landscape and they found this object and they valued it because of its aesthetic value? Could they have picked it up and thought, this is a really beautiful thing? And how are they making that judgment? Is it because of the way that it was made? Is it because of the craftsmanship? Or was it just a completely different reason? But I think it's an important, maybe, question to ask. What kind of value did that have to the people of the Crannog? Was it something that was aesthetically pleasing to them? And I think that's where you hit a kind of opaque cloud, because we've actually got no idea about Iron Age art. We've got, all we end up with really is our opinion of art. Or our opinion of what might be of art in the past. So it's so difficult to tease all this out.
Just to jump on, you've jumped to the arrowhead, and just jump to the next piece I think is important to mention from our collection to help us, we won't be able to answer the question, but discuss it anyway, is the lyre bridge. So what we have is a piece of wood which we think is a lyre bridge. It's got 5 notches cut into it, and if you were to carry it on the shape it is, we reckon it would have had 7 notches all in all. And this is the bridge of a lyre. So a stringed instrument with a sound box, 2 arms coming up, a cross piece coming across, and then the strings coming down from the top of the cross piece to the bottom of the sound box. And then what you need is a piece of wood which holds the strings off of the sound box and is able to pass that sound through. Again, I've just done what I've said I did before, and I've broken it down to its very basic principles of how it was made and crafted. That's what we can do. But what comes with this, and I think out of all the things in the collection, it's probably the most attainable for us to understand as art. Because a stringed instrument, we still have them today. We still use them today, and they are one of the oldest instruments around. And I think music and sound, and I remember when we talk about music and sound, we had a fantastic musician, an archaeo-musician, a musician that specialised in prehistoric music in the form of Barnaby Brown, wonderful and eclectic Barnaby Brown. He was fantastic. But he played the lyre, he played prehistoric wind instruments. But what came from that was that he was playing the only song he could play, which he taught to the local school here, was the oldest song that we had notes for, which was a Greek song. Now that was, I think it was later, much later than the Crannog, but the point being is that all he could do was find the earliest song and teach them that one. And what he was discussing, we had a very rich conversation about this, about what notes would have been played, what music would have been played. In past 20 years, music has changed, and what we consider is, music and things change in just 20 years, 2,500 years from the Greeks in the Mediterranean to the top of Scotland. There's going to be differences in sound and music. We can't attain that. And what he did say, which was really interesting actually, is that he was studying how really early Greek music had almost quarter notes, they reckon, they were recording down. So we do half notes. I'm not a musician, so if anybody's going to shout at me, feel free. But that idea of flat and sharp, they had quarter notes, so there's even a more in-depth kind of sense to tuning and what sounds might have been. Again, it's very difficult to grasp, but what we know and what we can attain from that is that there was music on the Crannog.
Yeah.
There was music in the Iron Age. We never expected there wouldn't be. But we have an idea of what that may have sounded like because we can reconstruct that. But what we can do is we can reconstruct the instrument. We can't reconstruct what they were playing on it.
And we also can't reconstruct the stories that they were telling with the lyre.
Exactly.
You know, and I think that's linking back to what Alistair was saying about the drum. You're going into the intangible, and you're going into community. Yeah. So if you don't just play a drum on your own, you play a drum for people. It has a function. It might mark the beginning of something or the end of something, or it might mark, if someone is telling a story, it might mark, I don't know, the sound of thunder or whatever it is. Yeah. And I think also with the lyre as well, it has a very, very different sound. It has a very calming sound.
Quiet.
But quiet. It's very, very quiet. And maybe they chose that for a reason, because it was a background sound to the storyteller. But what it does is it brings people together so they can tell their stories. I think that's really important. Should we scale that up massively? Because just before we came onto the podcast, we were talking about 400 Crannogs in Scotland.
Yes.
With the amount of people that were living in the Iron Age in Scotland, to see a Crannog would be rather unusual, wouldn't it? Because although we've got 17, possibly 18 Crannogs on Loch Tay, they weren't all inhabited at the same time. So it could be that, say if you'd never seen a Crannog before and you suddenly saw one, that was highly likely to happen, wasn't it, for people in the Iron Age? What do you think about it? Do you want to explain what you were talking about?
When you think about the populations of the Iron Age, just to put it into maybe a bit of context, there's over 400 Crannogs that have been identified in Scotland. Let's take 400 as that number, just for argument's sake. Not all of those are Iron Age. Okay? Not all of them in the Iron Age were up at the same time. But for argument's sake, let's just say that 400 was. If it was 400.
Yeah.
Even if 400 Crannogs existed in Scotland, that still would make them incredibly rare to see. In terms of if you were an Iron Age person travelling, moving around, going and seeing. And these people weren't, within a mile of where they lived. People moved, they travelled, they had to. Trade's part of the world. So you're not actually going to have a large number of Crannogs around. And in fact, when you come across a Crannog, or if you saw a Crannog, or if you built a Crannog, you were building something, I think, and it's a fair assumption to make, that was quite special in terms of the time. So my point to you is that learning and practice. Yeah. The skills to be able to build a Crannog and actually build one were got through learning and practice. Yeah. Therefore, in your beginning of your definition, it was an art. But not only that, as something to go out and see, to visually see, and be inspired by. Yeah. Does the Crannog itself, the actual structure itself, not fit all the categories of a piece of art? Yeah, of course it does. Yeah. So that can be, of course it does. And I think, as I said, it's very, very difficult because we keep jumping behind this cultural prism of what is art, what isn't art. I mean, just taking it to a silly extreme, you could even have people going on days out to see the Crannog. Let's go and see the Crannog at the end of the loch. I mean, why not? Well, they do that. They do that today. So. Yeah, they do that today. So why wouldn't they do that then? Although to jump on that point, Jason, and I will jump on the point just for a second. It's quite incredible the number of people. So June last year, our Crannog burnt down. Yeah. So we lost that Crannog, and obviously that was quite an emotional time, but also it was quite impactful. Yeah. But the number of people that have come and said, "Where's it gone?" Yeah. They never visited. They hadn't come in, but because they were here, it was there in the landscape. Yeah. It was part of the landscape, and then all of a sudden it's gone. And if that was just a house or a building or a bench or something that's just there for function, people might notice, but it wouldn't impact them. And what I found is that for something that didn't have, a direct function for people's daily life, there was an impact when it was gone. Yeah. And that people have come and asked, where has it gone and where is it? And I think when you talk about how powerful these things can be, it's an experience. It's experiential archaeology, as you call it. It's not experimental, but I think it does fit all the boxes.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
No. I was just going to say, because even with that, people who, I mean, again, we do not know how people of the past responded to loss. We do not know. We can't. We have no idea of that. But we only have our own experience of people in the present. So there have been people that have come here and they visited 10 years ago, or they visited 15 years ago, or it was part of their childhood to come here, and they've only been here once, and they had that emotional connection for maybe about an hour, because the tours used to be shorter. And yet you can see that they're visibly moved by the fact that the chronic's gone, and yet they've only really encountered it for 20 minutes. Many, many, many years ago. There is that emotional entanglement with a building that sits out on the loch. So we are kind of going into the realms of fantasy here. But as I said, I do, I've got this idea of people in the past, and they get to about the age of 40. Do you remember that time we went to see the chronic? I am being a bit silly here. But how were they perceived?
Yeah.
Were they perceived as these big, beautiful buildings? It'd be really interesting to go back to the past.
Yeah.
And be with the people the first time they saw a chronic. Would they view that as a work of art? But again, it's very difficult to separate it out.
But I think it's something worth thinking about, if nothing else.
Yeah.
So speaking of art, we are going to have an event on the 24th and 25th of September, which is our Rise and Shine Festival. It's going to be running with a number of artists, in every sense of the word.
Yes.
A number of artists who are going to be delivering a variety of different activities and crafts, from printmaking and all sorts of things that are going to be going on. It's going to be a fantastic event. If you want to book online, you can book. We run tours from 10 till 4, and we will have extra activities and events that are going to be bookable on the day to be involved with in workshops and different things, the different crafts and skills that are happening for the Rise and Shine Festival. So it's well worth booking onto that. And really the only other thing to add to that is that we are going to be building our new Cranog next year. We're going to be moving to Delurb. Everything's still on track to do that. Hopefully we'll have some good news by next week about cracking on with the process and getting building. So there will be chance to be involved with the building of the Iron Age village, and there will be a chance to be involved with the building of the Cranog into next year. So if anybody who would like to get involved, do get in touch with us at the Cranog Centre.
And come and make some art.
And come and make some art. There you go. We folded it into that. Perfect. Brilliant. Thank you for listening, guys.